Okay, wait, hang on. Before you get mad about the Snarky title, there is some stuff that I like about Tormented Souls, and I'll talk about that, but like, look, come on, look at this. And this. And this. Yeah, I mean, homage would be putting it lightly. Tormented Souls is less inspired by Resident Evil and more like it copied Resident Evil's homework. And yeah, I mean, that's not a terrible thing, right? The old school Resident Evil gameplay is timeless. Tight hallways and scarce resources to poke your way through a creepy mansion while solving puzzles and dodging monsters. It's easy, it's comfort food. If you're a nut for survival horror, you might like Tormented Souls, not for its story or well-written or acted characters.
What's going on here? Why is that weird man walking around the operating table with that weird chandelier in his hands?
But for the devoted emulation of that classic gameplay, warts and all. This is a game for people who love that old survival horror stuff and not much else. It's less that Tormented Souls wears its influence on its sleeve as it does frame it and put it on the mantle next to the photos of its loved ones. So just know what you're getting into here. Expect clunky controls, weird writing, puzzles that fluctuate from easy and fun to nonsensical and frustrating, and gameplay that is dated but authentic in that old way. If you're into all that, you might be happy here if you can get around some of the stuff that comes with the jank of the genre, and some of the stuff that reminds you that you're playing an indie game, and some of the stuff that's just weird, like the ridiculous puzzle tuning. I think you might have a decent time with Tormented Souls. Okay, and I gotta talk about the mansion that this game takes place in. It immediately starts off in a weird way. You play as some rando named Caroline who gets a letter involving a couple of missing girls and takes it upon herself to investigate. The whole intro spans like 30 seconds, like the developers were thinking, look, we know that you're here for the mansion and the fixed camera angles, so let's just get this shit going. Arriving on scene, you're immediately captured and thrown naked into a bathtub because, of course you are, instantly dressed again and set on your way to explore and figure out what happened to you and those girls from the photo for some reason. This place is so weird. It's a mansion, but it's also a hospital, and it's referred to as both, full of wood paneling and tile haphazardly thrown around. It's absolutely stuffed with ornate statues, candelabras, and chandeliers, with signage posted seemingly every 3 feet at random. There are suits of armor and operating rooms, elevators that don't go to every floor, and giant staircases. It's so random. Like, what made the original Spencer Mansion in Resident Evil so cool is that it folded out for you, right? You started to see these extra rooms, the traps, the hidden research shit. Tormented Souls just kind of says fuck it and smashes everything together in one place so that it feels uncanny and weird. Every inch packed to the brim with random stuff. Here's a surgical suite attached to this bedroom. Is that an espresso machine in this surgical observation room? There are stretchers and wheelchairs everywhere, but you can't go 10 feet without running into a small staircase. Hallways so tight that you couldn't Tetris these stretchers through if you tried. There's jade statues and stadium seating, pews and mop buckets, giant marble sculptures and overflowing trash cans. I'm personally a big fan of the vending machine in the chapel and this completely out of place urinal. It's overstimulating and so smashed together and kind of nonsensical. It's like some fever dream of every Resident Evil location kludged together. You'll spend the entire game exploring this place, and you know, to the game's credit, I felt that the vibe was kind of off until I found myself pawing through a pitch black hallway with nothing but a flashlight scaring away the darkness in front of me and the sound of some creature ahead dragging itself through the shadows along the dusty floorboards. Or later, when I realized that I haven't saved for like 40 minutes and I'm low on health, limping through a wing of the mansion that I'd never been to, no safe room in sight and nothing but a crowbar between me and whatever creature is hidden behind the insidiously placed fixed camera. Yeah, at a high level, any misgivings I had with Tormented Souls went away in these moments. And I kind of changed my perspective a little bit on the game. It's absolutely derivative, yeah, but like that's the point. There is a certain kind of tension that you can't really replicate in other horror games. It's some confluence of clunky controls, a disempowered protagonist, hostile and difficult to navigate environment, and the risk of losing progress that comes together in a timeless and admittedly hard to capture feeling. It's helped by the game's admittedly fantastic understanding of fixed camera angles. You know, so many of these old school style survival horrors try to emulate this, but they miss the mark. The usefulness of this system is to evoke a sense of place and a fear of what might be lurking ahead. It intentionally hides what's ahead of you or behind you, making each step forward kind of a risk. It can set the mood by forcing the perspective to focus on what the developers want you to see. They can hide or show so much this way, and man, Tormented Souls really nails it. Most shots are evocative and creepy, giving you just enough environmental info to get a sense of where you are, but not what to expect. They're really good, and even if they go a little crazy sometimes. Alongside the authentic camera work, they also did a pretty good job with the combat. You have a couple weapons at your disposal, the mainstay being this nail gun that is generally stocked with ammo, and a melee weapon that I'd avoid using most of the time, and a really fucking weird shotgun thing cobbled together with a stapler and some 2-inch pipe. The combat is the standard stand and shoot with your character locked in place while fighting. She has a pretty good snap-on effect, which is really nice. You'll need it because you're rarely ambushed by monsters when you enter a room, but they're almost always lurking behind the next camera angle. Sometimes the tracking is weird, and I often found that there's just enough random shit in the environment that your shots can be lost to collision, but other than that, it's pretty good. I'd stay away from melee combat if you can help it. There's a dodge button that's kind of funky, and I found only marginal success using it. I'm sure there's a crowbar-only run of this game, but I won't be attempting it. You can kite most enemies that you don't want to fight, but I found that I generally had enough ammo for most encounters. You won't have to fret too much over resources. My biggest issue that I had was keeping stocked up on the morphine health items because I often found that I lost a lot of health on enemies that have a pretty good ability to close in on you while you're fighting. They'll stagger after a few hits, but I noticed that they have some kind of small speed boost thing after taking damage, making it easier for them to get a swipe in on you before going down. I guess that's what the dodge button's for. You can reload your weapons in the menu, so just do that and keep your distance, you'll be okay. You can also get this cool stun rod thing that packs a punch and really takes away any skill that you might have had to employ in combat. Just wait until they get close and zap them. Yeah, nothing too exciting here, but it's tuned in such a way that it kind of just blends into the background as you explore. You don't have to labor over resources or worry too much about being overrun or trapped in a dead end, but it's also not boring. Later, you'll come across this deflated Michelin man who has a chance to spawn in any room of the mansion, but you can just reload the room and he goes away, so no sweat there. Nice idea, though. Okay, so the puzzles. This is the most divisive part of the game. You can't walk 10 feet without coming across a puzzle. Every room in this goddamn mansion has a puzzle of some kind. These things are everywhere. Like, I get it. Obtuse puzzles welded into a giant creepy mansion is the whole point, right? But what's so funny about Tormented Souls is that it makes no attempt to explain it away. I'm just here playing Simon Says with the fucking vending machine. The puzzles here run a gambit of quality too. You have the basic lock and key stuff, sure, but you also have some really obtuse, arbitrarily difficult puzzles too. Just to open this goddamn cash register, I have to look at this picture and count the lines that intersect with the dots and then input those numbers. Want to unlock this door? Well, you need to set the teeth of the key first, so obviously you choose the circle for the first one because humans are from Earth and Earth is a circle, and then you choose this weird X thing because it looks kind of like a star, and there are aliens in space, and there's also stars in space. You see what I'm saying? It's like this all the time. I like hard puzzles, I really do, but there is a difference between designing a puzzle so that you feel informed and ready to tinker with it regardless of difficulty, and then designing them to be needlessly obtuse. And part of that is that the game rarely tells you when you have all the pieces. There are many times where I ran around thinking surely I missed a note or some contextual clue to understand this puzzle, but no, they're just designed to be kind of convoluted, which really hampers the flow of the game. It's tough because some of them are super simple and some are not. Like this one is just assembling two pieces of a heart and slotting it in. Okay, sure. Find and charge the battery to power the lift. Piece of cake. This one, get the stethoscope, listen to the heartbeat, and then use that heartbeat as the secret knock. Easy to understand, tons of fun. But then there'll be one like this where you have to run around one of the countless nondescript operating tables 3 times clockwise because a character mentions a ritual in a conversation and you passively observe an enemy doing it. No other information is given, and there is nothing else in the game that might inform you to try something like that. The inconsistency just creates these huge swings in difficulty, and it left me always questioning what the game wanted me to do, or if I missed something, or maybe I'm just dumb. I think the best puzzles here are the environmental ones that ask you to think about the layout of the mansion, recall those shortcuts that you've unlocked, and think about the fastest way to get around, like one where you need to use an elevator to navigate a power shutoff, and the elevator is only accessible from certain floors, so you have to remember your path and find your way back. Or the ones where you can solve a puzzle in the present by putting pieces in place in the past. Because, oh yeah, you can go into the past a little bit that I mentioned that. These mirror portal things let you go back to certain areas in the past and do things like pour acid on a lock. So when you next come across it, it's dissolved away and the path is open. These are neat, and I personally found them way more interesting because it's kind of testing my knowledge of what the game world is, testing my memory to recall certain areas or roadblocks that I've encountered. It all makes me think about stuff in game as opposed to solving an obtuse riddle that has no ties to anything else that I'm doing. Some of these puzzles really nail it, but most of them don't. It's the biggest hangup you'll run into, and you might find yourself searching for answers if you're not up to it. Yeah, as a package, it makes it hard to recommend if you're not totally down with stuff like this. I mean, you're certainly not here for the story or the voice acting that's only sometimes there.
Daughters.
Where can I find him?
He's usually in his office. You'll probably find him there.
I'll go find him. He might be able to give me some answers. Thank you, Father. I'm sure this will be of help.
God be with you, child.
Yeah, this is where you really feel that indie budget and where I think the story would have felt much stronger without the voice acting.
Do you work in the hospital?
No, but I have this photograph. Are you one of these girls?
For sure, I think it's more of a problem with the direction and the writing than the voice actor themselves, but everything here feels awkwardly paced and stilted.
What's going on here? Why is that weird man walking around the operating table with that weird chandelier in his hands?
It's a story, of course, of cults and medical experimentation wrapped around flat characters and writing that feels uninteresting. It's serviceable to explain the gore in the macabre hospital, but there isn't really any meaningful escalation, and very little actually happens over the course of the game. The whole thing should take you like 4 hours, but the puzzles will absolutely balloon that. Yeah, you're not walking away with anything substantial here.
Creature lying on an operating table. It had blades for hands. After circling the body 3 times, it rose and tried to kill me.
Yeah, Tormented Souls. It wants to evoke that classic survival horror, right? And yeah, I mean, when you're weaving through dark hallways and desperate for some morphine or a clip of nails for your nail gun or examining a new key item in your inventory, it certainly gets that feeling. There's plenty of juicy exploration here, note reading and resource collecting. The monsters on hand are fine, at least they're not boring. They've got a lot of character and serve the combat well enough. And when you've hit your stride with a puzzle and you're racking your brain for the next step, or you're looking at your map to plan your route, the game starts glowing. It comes close to being a great Resident Evil clone because there is a lot of talent on display with how they really nailed those elements. But man, there's enough that brings it down. The nonsense puzzles that grind you to a halt, the combat that's just fine, and the resource management that's, while serviceable, isn't really engaging or challenging enough to buoy the weight of those puzzles. And a story that doesn't feel campy and bright like some of the older survival horrors, just kind of feels rote and flat. Yeah, I can really only recommend this to ardent survival horror fans, and only those among you with high tolerances for frustrating puzzles and who can parse through them in a package that feels more constrained by its limitations rather than creative and ingenuitous in face of them.
What's going on here? Why is that weird man walking around the operating table with that weird chandelier in his hands?